A spinning sphere, firmament, hemisphere, expanse, atmosphere, rqio. It was in the year 2010 that I crossed the North Atlantic by going north and south, leaving Philadelphia on a cold February evening and shortly thereafter at speeds of near 600 miles per hour, reaching our destination. We were landing in the country that was always in the news, Israel. Why was it that we did not go straight across the ocean? I thought it was shorter to go across the vast ocean rather than up and around the coastlines of the North Atlantic. The YouTube videos inform me that airlines above the equator use these northern routes, sometimes crossing the North Atlantic, and airlines south of the equator always go north and then turn south over the land masses. It really caught me off guard this past year when I was introduced to the idea that I had been misinformed. After seeing these crazy YouTube videos, I made trips to the Jupiter, Florida Lighthouse, to Orlando, Florida, and other locations to make my own observations of how Florida actually was on a level horizon. It came time to review the descriptive word origins and understand this in my mind. I went to the written documentation that is my trusted source. I opened my Bible to Genesis. I opened the online scriptureforall.org parallel Hebrew and English translation. Genesis 1:6. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." I reviewed the Hebrew translation on Scripture for All. And he is saying, Elohim, he shall become atmosphere in the midst of the waters, and he shall become separating between waters to waters. And he is making Elohim the atmosphere, and he is separating between the waters, which from under to atmosphere, and between the waters which from onto atmosphere. But what is firmament? So I had to look up the Hebrew letters. Right there at atmosphere they have rqio. I have to go to a Bible translator lexicon, look up the origin of the word, individual letters, and their meanings. I chose the Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon by Frederick William Gesenius, published in 1846. I found that at the website tyndalearchive.com/tabs/Gesenius. So there were the letters in this lexicon that represented the word for firmament. And it says these letters were in Genesis 1, verse 6, verse 7, verse 8. So in this 1846 lexicon, it says, "The firmament of heaven spread out like a hemisphere above the earth, like a splendid, pellucid sapphire, to which the stars are supposed to be fixed, over which the Hebrews believed there was a heavenly ocean, spread out like a hammer pounds a chunk of metal into a shield." So what does hemisphere mean? Hemisphere, half of a sphere. So what was the origin of this word hemisphere? Well, it comes from Greek hemi, meaning half, plus sphere, which was translated today to hemisphere, the sky. So people ask, what does the term hemisphere really mean? A hemisphere is half of a sphere. So I found this on vocabulary.com in their dictionary for the word hemisphere. So according to the 1846 translation, firmament is half a sphere, a hemisphere, like a splendid, pellucid sapphire. So what's pellucid? Admitting maximum passage of light without diffusion or distortion, as in a pellucid stream. So the blue sky is like a sapphire in the sunlight, but after the sun moves over the horizon, we look upward and see the night sky. At night, the North Star stays in the same place. It is not rotating. The stars around it rotate, as the camera observes from the Earth. Elsewhere, the definition of hemisphere, from Ezekiel 22:26, it is spoken of as the floor on which the throne of the Most High is placed. Hence it follows that notions of solidity and expansion are both contained in the Hebrew conception of the firmament. So I wanted to go to another source. I went to the Brown Driver Briggs Decennius Lexicon, published in 1906. And here this lexicon defines it as an expanse or vaulted ceiling. This is on the BibleStudyTools.com website. And this has a Strong's number 07549 for the word firmament. Online scriptureforall.org translates this to a modern Latin word, atmosphere. If I look up the root of the definition of atmosphere on etymonline.com, atmosphere was invented by the 17th century scientist from Greek words for vapor, atmos, and sphere, spheria. The Earth's atmosphere is the air and gas surrounding our planet. So from the late 14th century, in reference, any of the supposed concentric, transparent, hollow crystalline globes of the cosmos believed to revolve around the Earth and contain planets and the fixed stars. So in the 14th century, it was believed to revolve around the Earth. So the Bible was translated from Hebrew to Greek, and Greek was the required language of the day. You either learned Greek or you died. So the Greek was later translated to Latin Vulgate before King James assigned his translators. I wanted the oldest meaning. In February 2010, I visited Israel. I was on a trip, and our guide happened to be a Hebrew scholar who taught along the way at each site we visited. On our fourth day there, we visited the area of a cave where they had found the ancient manuscripts, the Dead Sea Scrolls. The record is that in 1947, a Bedouin shepherd boy was near the cave. He aimed his crude weapon as he swung his shepherd's sling at a hole in the side of a high-sloped rock formation. By some miracle, the rock entered the hole and landed with a shatter. He climbed up and worked into the cave and discovered the broken clay jar and took its contents to sell to a dealer. So the letters rqio meant firmament. I wanted to know if the firmament, rqio, were the same letters in the ancient Genesis document. Hebrew is read from left to right, so there's four letters. The first one that looks like the English letter Y, that's ayin. The next one looks like an apostrophe, that's the yod. The one that looks like the letter P is actually the letter Q, and the one that looks like a backwards 7 is the letter R. I searched for online photos of the oldest known written scrolls for the Genesis chapter 1 verse 6 text. I found this picture on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and as I carefully scanned the Hebrew letters, there it was right in the middle. I found what I was looking for. Resh, Kaf, Yod, Ayin. I searched deeper in the Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon. Resh, the 20th Hebrew letter, denotes the head. Kaf, the 19th Hebrew letter, denotes the hole of an axe. If you had an old stone axe, and there was a hole in the piece of wood where the stone went through for the axe head, the letter that represents the hole holding up the axe is Kaf, the hole of an axe. The 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Yod. This letter represents the figure of a hand. Ayin. Ayin is an eye. In the Phoenician alphabet, Ayin was translated to a circle, or the letter O. Resh, head. Kaf, axe hole. Yod, hand. Ayin, eye. rqio. As I summarize my journey thus far, I can state from these letter meanings. From around my head is a firm hole like holds an axe. Above my hand's reach is all I see in my eye's peripheral intake. Firmament. How can anything escape the hemisphere firmament into a sphere orbit when the Bible clearly states it is only half a sphere, hemisphere? Some negative force opposed to the Bible has deceived me on this subject for many years. I was trained in scientific hypothesis from Greek philosophers, and these scientists had tainted the education system. The system that removed prayer and Bible reading while I was still in grammar school. Yet I have been to high places and observed the distant level horizon. I have observed level clouds as far as I could see looking out of an airplane window. I have used the same construction level that is still accurate by the center bubble. I've used this level in New Jersey, in North Carolina, and miles south in Florida, and it's always accurate with a bubble. If I ignore the Bible and the meaning origins, I avoid the truth. So I looked into googlebooks.com for this Chambers Handy American Encyclopedia printed in 1885. where firmament is quoted as to a splendid and placid sapphire, it is spoken of as the floor on which the throne of the Most High is placed. So again, Genesis 1:6, and God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." If I have a compressor with a tank, as I run the compressor, the water vapor is condensed and collects on the bottom of the tank. So the H2O water vapor above the earth that we call air, 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, has a lower density than of the water that can be condensed and collected at the bottom of the tank. Thin air above the tree line has a much lower amount of oxygen. Hydrogen rises and oxygen sinks. So the water is divided by the density levels. Go too deep in the ocean of water, and the density pressure will push all the air bubbles out of your lungs and bloodstream. We are surrounded by different density levels of water vapor, the waters above and the waters below. If I stand on the sandy shores by the North Atlantic or the California Pacific, waves lap at my toes. The same level of ocean waves lap on the sands on the Atlantic side in the Florida Keys or on the Gulf of Mexico side. And I can be completely dry 1,360 feet below mean sea level, standing in the Dead Sea Valley. Here the water is drained to lower levels every year as truckloads of salt are mined from the bottom of the Dead Sea and exported daily. The area is so dry in the Dead Sea Valley that water vapor rarely condenses in this area or rains upon it. It's called the Valley of the Shadow of Death. It was in this arid area that the oldest treasured scrolls were preserved. Yet, most deny the words therein and continue to follow scientific hypotheses from Greek philosophers. Denial that has caused many to ignore the existence of a single creator. Even the demons know of his existence and fear him, so it states in the New Testament in James 2:19. But now I will tell you why I prefer to go to the original text. Because even King James had the translators put his name James on the book of Jacobus, which is a Hellenized form of the Hebrew name Yaakov, Jacob. There is no J sound in Hebrew. So according to the Bible, the earth is the foundation and contained by a hemispheric firmament. The bigger light, sun, and smaller light, moon, are contained in the firmament. If I am a believer and stand by my faith on the original Torah, the Genesis, the beginnings in the Bible, then I can no longer accept the programmed teachings of the earth being a globe. So if I look at the Hebrew and Chaldee lexicon, the word that translates as earth, A being the first letter, the beginning, Resh R, the 20th Hebrew letter, denotes the head of a man. The letter R looks like a man's hairline on the scalp. Ayin means eyeball, and it's shaped like a circle or the letter O. I surmise, from the beginning, use your head and observe with your eye. The earth is the center of the universe. Next I'll look into circle, ball, pillars, clouds in the next chapter of this journey. So the Hebrew letters for circle, Chaf, valve, are Gimel. And if I look at that definition again in the Gesenius, it means to describe a circle or to draw a circle as with a compass. It could be a circle or a sphere used of the arch or vault of the sky. In Job 26:10, he has inscribed a circle on the surface of the waters at the boundary of light and darkness. In Proverbs 8, verses 26 through 28, wisdom is speaking to us here. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. While he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth, when he established the clouds above, when he strengthens the foundation of the deep. And in Job chapter 22, verse 14, thick clouds are a covering to him, and he seeth not, and he walketh in the circuit of heaven. Isaiah 40, verse 22, it is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. So again, the letters for circle, Hath is the 8th letter of the Hebrew language, and the shape of this letter, it signifies a hedge or fence. It means to surround or gird. Valve denotes a nail or hook. It means either nail or man. And the letter G in the Hebrew language is gamel, which is like a camel kneeling. And a camel usually kneels to carry a burden. It has to kneel down before the camel owner can put a burden on his back. So we look at the word ball, dur, D-U-R. The word ball is also translated as circle or a burning pile, a round heap of wood. The letters deleth is the D, which is like a door lintel, valve, which is again a nail, and R, which is resh. In Isaiah 22:18, where ball is referenced, it is not referred to the earth, but something that's held in the palm like a ball tossed to roll over a disobedient one. Isaiah 22:18, to twirl he shall twirl you, twirling as the bowling ball, to land wide of sides. There you die, and there the chariots of glory of you, dishonor of house of lords of you. Kaf, the 11th letter of the Hebrew language, signifies a wing or hollow of the hand, the palm. When we take the letter Kaf and put it in front of the word ball, it's like we're palming the ball. Isaiah 22:18. He will surely turn violently and toss you like a ball into a large country. There you shall die, and there your glorious chariots shall be the shame of your master's house. But the word ball in this case refers to something that's rolling over top. So next we'll look at the word for pillars. Psalm 75:3. The earth and all its inhabitants are dissolved. I set up its pillars firmly. Selah. Pillars of the earth, which are considered pillars or columns, is a poetic expression occurring only twice. Job 9:6 speaks of the trembling of the earth's pillars during an earthquake. In Psalm 75:3, there is also an adjustment of the pillars after the dissolving of the earth. Heaven's pillars tremble at the rebuke of God in Job 26:11. Some scholars insist that these references must mean that the Hebrews conceived of a world supported by literal pillars. A more general sense of rocky foundations is more probable. So let's look at the letter origins for pillars. Ayin, which is the letter O, or looks like the eyeball. Mem, which is the letter M, stands for waters or ocean wave. Valve, which is the letter U, nail or man. Deleth, D, frame of a door, and it looks like a framing square, or it's a post holding up a door lintel. And I, which is the hand, yod. So if I find in my interlinear Bible of Hebrew and English for Psalm 75:3, I see pillars, O-M-U-D-I, which simulates the eye, a circle, under an ocean wave, nailed to the door lintel, and holding by the hand, uplifted by the hand. So the circle of the oceans is attached to the door lintel by the hand of God. Next we'll look at the word cloud, and cloud uses three letters, again the ayin, the nun, and then in the Hebrew language, the letter nun has a different shape at the end of a word, which is called final end. So the ayin means eye, the nun is like a fish. Genesis 9:14 through 16. It shall be, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. So if you look at a rainbow in the clouds, it's in the shape of the firmament. It's a reflection of the firmament. It's like a barrier reflection. So again, cloud uses the letters ayin, nun, and final nun. Have you ever looked in the clouds to a herringbone pattern in the clouds and it looked like fish? The Hebrew definition for cloud, a covering, to cover. So the clouds are a covering over the earth in the firmament. And we know that clouds are made up of water vapor, so it's water above the waters. So we looked at the words firmament, circle, ball, and pillars, and clouds. I did not go deep into all these meanings, but mainly wanted to show the pathway of how I found my answers. I have not shown you all 22 letter meanings of the Hebrew alphabet. That is for your own research. I may not have pronounced these Hebrew words the way that you're used to, but I'm not a Hebrew professor. I'm only looking at the meanings of the words. I'm not studying pronunciations. It is better for some to do their own research, and the findings are better understood that way. The Bible has a hidden mystery, and it's not relied on as a source for many who choose to ignore it. In fact, 2 Peter 3 verses 5 through 6 in the King James says, "For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that was being overflowed with water perished." And this is in reference to the flood of Noah. So the reason I'm going to the Bible, we'll look at Proverbs 4:7. "Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom, and in all your getting, get understanding." On my pathway of this life, I was fortunate to do video work for someone teaching an introduction to ancient Hebrew and the meanings of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. I had a firm biblical belief, but after I saw many things in Israel, my belief went to a deeper level of understanding. I still have a long ways to go, as the more I research into the word origins and the original messages, the hungrier I get for more. I have found more in the Bible than just understanding the expanse of the land, the level horizon, and what is above the earth. Yes, the Earth's surface is a level horizon at mean sea level, or simply a flat Earth. Dubbed as the richest man in the world, multi-billionaire Andrew Carnegie, 1835 through 1919, assigned his fortunes to an endowment fund. His wife Louise appointed Robert Luster to distribute Carnegie's funds. One critical requirement was that the church-related schools had to sever their religious connections to get Carnegie's money. Education institutions opted for the payoff. If you think there is a coincidence that there became a division between scientific research and biblical studies, just follow the money trail. The method I have shown is how I researched to reveal truths that were lost in translations or ignored. You can hide in the bushes and watch and follow current propaganda that is so easy to absorb. Or you can do your own research and observations. I hope you find the way, the truth, and the life.